Good morning, everybody. Appreciate everyone joining here today. Um, Today's topic for this webinar is a Mist technical enablement session focused on campus and branch. So we'll be reviewing the overall benefits and key features of the Mist platform, as well as showing a little live demo of that platform. My name is Logan Danielson. I'm an SE here from the Juniper HPE side, covering our channel partners in the Northwest. Today with me, I also have Mark Westling, who is the CIO at Right Systems, who's one of our key partners in the region. So with that, we'll jump in, just give you an idea of our agenda. Mark will give an overview and kind of an introduction to Right Systems, who they are and what they do. I'll be going through some Mist modules, focusing on AIOps and config and sort of exploring, what is the platform, what does it cover, what are the key benefits, and hopefully spending most of our time today showing off some of those features in our live demo. We will have time at the end for Q&A, so you can go ahead and submit your questions through the Q&A box in the meeting down below. So with that, I will pass things off to Mark.
Thanks, Logan. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you attending. If you are attending this webinar, you're probably familiar with Right Systems. We are a technology solutions provider here in the Pacific Northwest who's been around for going on 33 years. Juniper HPE Networking is one of our Tier 1 networking partners, and we work very closely with them. We sell a lot of products and deliver a lot of services around their solutions. I've been working with Mr. Miner here for about 35 years in various capacities. So we're happy to be presenting with Juniper today. You can skip to the next slide. Again, been around going on 33 years this year. We're located in 4 different locations throughout the Pacific Northwest. I'm coming to you from our Lacey, Washington headquarters office. We also have a Bellevue office. We have a Boise, Idaho office and a Portland, Oregon office. So we have over 50 dedicated engineers to deliver services around the solutions we're going to talk about today. And we pretty much offer solutions in all different types of vertical industries. Some of the practice areas you might be familiar with and have worked with Right Systems on are digital workspace. That is primarily around our Citrix, VMware, and user computing solutions. Our data center and cloud practice, where we also work very closely with HPE. Of course, networking, which we're going to talk about today, security, and collaboration. So I look forward to Logan presenting today and talking about some of the solutions that we can help deliver to you, the end customer, to help make your job a little easier. So Logan, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. Like I mentioned, I will keep an eye on the Q&A box here. So as I'm going through this, if anybody has questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A box, and I'll try to answer them live as best I can here. So when Mist was first founded, kind of the real idea behind the creation of Mist was to create what you see up here on the title, right, which is truly an AI native networking platform. So obviously AI is a buzzword that none of us can escape these days. Mist really wanted to create something different that wasn't just a, standard controller based networking platform with, an AI agent slapped on top of that. The idea was to build it with, the right infrastructure, collect the right data that's going to be useful to that AI, because as anybody who's worked with those systems knows, the system is only as good as the data that you feed it. And building that on the right infrastructure and with the right architecture is a really important part of that to be able to go towards, what we see as truly an AI native networking platform, right? Being able to have insights into fabric optimization, data center interconnect optimization, location services, so on and so forth. So everything that you're going to see on the dashboard in our live demo here today is built on a microservices architecture. So that gives us a much more stable, reliable platform and also gives us a much better feature velocity. So we do a production push on Mist. Oh, slides are auto advancing for me here. We do a production push on the Mist platform roughly every 2 to 3 weeks. So every 2 to 3 weeks with no updates, no additional purchases or subscriptions. We're always pushing new features, bug fixes, new tools to the Mist dashboard for our users pretty much in real time. This has been recognized by Gartner for a number of years now. I think 2025 was our fourth year in a row. We were at the very top of the Magic Quadrant for wired and wireless LAN infrastructure. So from, industry standards and professionals, this has been, recognized for truly building kind of a different and visionary platform for campus and branch networking. It's definitely not just the industry reviewers though, right? I always like to just refer to our customers as our best point of reference, and we have a lot of happy customers with Mist. These are just a few of anecdotes from our customers, but the one that I always try and point out or focus on is this one from ServiceNow here, which is when they saw a 90% reduction in help desk tickets reported by employees. That one really stands out for me, not just from the 90% reduction, but because really that is one of the goals of, an AI native platform, right? Is to be able to have that AI looking at the network and being able to find problems and find solutions to those problems before they actually reach the end user. Because as we all know, it's much easier to be able to find an issue from the networking side rather than get a user ticket and try and backtrack and trace that problem back down the line. So this has had again a very very big impact on pretty much everybody that's deployed it. So when we're talking about an AI native or kind of a self-driving network, this is more or less sort of the journey to that, right? Whether it's self-driving network, right, or the self-driving car you see on the bottom here, right? So stage one, pre-Mist, data collection. This is sort of where the foundation of the platform was built off of, is what data do we want to collect, and how do we want to use it. So Mist for the wireless clients will be polling for 115 different pieces of network metadata. So that's like pre and post connection states, to be able to know what's going on in the network and not just measure the network performance in terms of, are all the flashing lights, are they all green? Do I see packets passing? It's really looking at the network from the user perspective and, based on the metadata from each individual user, are the users on my network having a good experience? And that's where we see things like insights on stage two. Moving up from that, right? Once we start getting insights and we say, okay, this is what a good network looks like from the user perspective. What can we do to make it better? What are some minor obvious adjustments that this AI can recommend to improve the performance or improve the experience of that user on that network? Assisted is basically proactive remediation, but with permission, i.e., controlled self-driving, right? Think of, the network equivalent of, Tesla's driving assist. Where we kind of see ourselves today is this sort of stage 4.5, right? In between assisted and full self-driving. So we'll see this on the dashboard in a little bit, but we're just kind of starting to get to the point where our agentic AI can look at the network, find a user experience, find potential problems, offer potential solutions, and take limited controlled action to be able to automatically resolve those issues. So I'll keep this slide a little bit briefer, but these are kind of the four pillars. We call them pillars unofficially, that really differentiate Mist from most other solutions on the market out there. I already kind of talked about client level visibility, right? Again, not assessing the network from the network perspective, assessing the network from the client level perspective, because that's truly what's going to, tell you how it's performing. Again, we also talked about AI native operations and support. So we'll show a little bit more of this in the dashboard too, right? But really having that AI ingestion engine be baked into all parts of it. Again, not just network performance and client experience, but things like radio resource management, reporting, things like that. Talked about microservices as well. And then the final one that we haven't touched on yet is this digital engagement with virtual BLE. So most of our Mist access points, in addition to having a Wi-Fi antenna and radio in the box, is we have an 8x8 Bluetooth low energy array. So what that lets us do is we're able to do location tracking for users via Wi-Fi and Bluetooth low energy in indoor environments with accuracy down to like the 1 to 3 meter range. We also have something in the dashboard here called virtual beacons, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's essentially just a GUI element that's replacing a physical beacon for user detection and user interaction. So, oh, apologies there. Um, so we're able to do that user interaction or customer interaction, asset tracking, all of that would normally require physical radio tags, physical beacons, things like that. We're able to do all of that basically just with Bluetooth Low Energy. And all of this is built, as you can probably see in the giant text below, on 100% open API. We use RESTful APIs for Mist. Most of the GUI elements that you'll see are actually just API calls themselves. So that makes us very open and easy to integrate with. So all of these logos you see on the bottom, we have tight integrations with them, as well as some additional technology solutions that are not listed here. But usually what I always tell folks is, if there's not a feature on the Mist dashboard, oh, let's see.
Hey, Logan, I don't think you're sharing.
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure why sharing stopped there. Apologies, everyone. Okay. I think we're back. So, yeah, if there's a feature or an integration that isn't already supported or already offered through Mist, it's often fairly trivial to be able to do that via APIs. So Marvis, which you'll probably be hearing a lot if you talk about with Mist, is kind of our name for our AI engine, or AI agent, whatever you want to call it. That is a play on Jarvis from Iron Man. If that popped into anybody's brain, that was intentional. And yes, so really all of these quotes, floating quotes you see here are just a few of the things that Marvis can help with. So Marvis Minis, for instance, that is basically our virtual network agents that go throughout the network, see how it's performing, or basically test how it would be performing for a user at any point in the network, and try and find, again, those user issues before users even join the network. Self-driving actions, like we talked about, right? Allowing the Marvis AI to take some limited changes to the network for improvement, and so on and so forth. There's a lot to Marvis, and most of it we'll get into in the dashboard here in a moment. But again, this up here in the top left is really what we're driving towards, right? End-to-end visibility and proactive operations. I apologize for the slide switching here. PowerPoint seems to have a mind of its own today. So just to give everybody kind of an overview of, what the Mist platform covers or what we're talking about in terms of, the AI-driven campus and branch. This is really the bulk of it that you see here. So up top, we have the Juniper Mist platform, which does live in a cloud AWS instance. That's where the AI agentic systems and microservices architecture lives. Marvis is, our virtual network assistant, like I mentioned. That kind of takes a few forms in the dashboard, as you'll see, as a conversational assistant. Marvis Minis, that digital experience twin, again, testing the network from a user's perspective before users even get on. And then Marvis Actions. So those are the, proactive insights, proactive actions that we talked about. And that's kind of an overlay to the platform as a whole. So we have a number of different subscriptions and services that are all kinds of part of this. If you see assurance, that's basically referencing, management and assurance of the experience on that device. So Wi-Fi assurance is for our Wi-Fi access points, wired assurance for our switches, routing assurance for our routers, WAN assurance for our WAN devices. User engagement and asset visibility is what we talked about with the Bluetooth low energy capabilities. And access assurance is our network access control solution that is baked into the Mist platform as well. So just to give everybody a point of reference for kind of what's managed and what we have in the cloud here. For wireless infrastructure, we have our APs. There's a number of different models and options, indoor and outdoor, internal antenna and external antenna. We also have our BT series devices, which are just Bluetooth low energy devices. We have some folks in particularly hospitality and retail, generally higher density environments who have a higher density of devices, users, assets to track, and needs tighter location services. So beaming, adding some additional BLE antennas in there lets us narrow down those location services a little bit better. For wired and for our switching options, we have our Juniper EX series and QFX series switches. And for WAN and routing, we have our SRX firewall and edge routers. We have our MX series routers, which is Juniper's flagship product. And then we also have our SSR series, which are Session Smart routers. Those are our SD-WAN devices that are also managed in Mist. Since Wi-Fi 7 right now is the flavor of the day, I'll just throw one last quick shout out here for our new Wi-Fi 7 access points. Got a number of different options here, but a couple of cool things I like to call out is we do have 10 gig uplinks on all of these now. And we also, for our D submodels for the AP47s and the AP66s, we have our dynamic directional antennas, which are basically a software controllable beam patterning for an internal enclosed directional antenna. So with that, I will stop sharing for one quick moment, move over to our live demo dashboard. While I'm doing that, if anybody has questions in the meantime, please put them in the Q&A box. All right. Alina, do we have anything coming in here?
I don't see anything.
Okay. All right. Well, we're getting moving on here. So jumping into the Mist dashboard. So the monitoring tab is basically the default landing page when you log into Mist for the first time. And what you'll see on the monitor page here under the wireless tab, you're going to see 7 graphs here. These are what we call SLEs. Stands for service level expectations. So not the usual SLAs we're all used to, service level agreements, but these are basically the expectations of how the network should be performing based on, call it quote unquote, normal performance, right? So what we measure for wireless is 7 of these. So time to connect, successful connects, coverage, roaming, throughput, capacity, and AP health. These are kind of the main 7 categories that we see contributing to a user's experience positively or negatively on the wireless network. And this is where all of that metadata, those 115 different pre and post connection states for wireless users, is essentially all getting ingested into. I have the timeline pulled up here back to the last 7 days, so we can see everything that's been going on for wireless users in the last week. We have a graph that shows user count and usage, and these little arrows show us different notable events on the network. So configuration changes, periodic optimization, AP recovery, disconnects, things like that. Just a nice quick heads up view. If we're looking at our SLEs, we can actually set these. So if I can go into settings, you can determine basically, what is considered successful operation of your network. So for time to connect, our goal is 2 seconds. For time to connect, we can drag that out all the way out to 20 seconds. So you can say, hey, I should expect everybody to be able to connect to my network within 2 seconds. If they don't, then that's going to be, quote unquote, a violation, right? Or that's not going to meet our service level expectation. Similar for coverage, right? We can set, based on our wireless mapping or any predictive heat mapping, we can say, okay, I expect, all users to be operating, at or above negative 66 dBm, right? Any user that has, a worse connection than that, we'll consider that a violation and account that into our SLEs. So for instance, we can look at coverage here. We're seeing only 75% success for coverage on this one. If I look to the right over here, these are the classifiers for each SLE. So these are basically the categories that determine the overall success or failure of any given service level expectation. So in the case of coverage, I can look and see here, weak signal is contributing to 77% of the users not being covered properly. So I can click into this, and from here I can see some basic statistics are my percentage of users and access points that are below the service goal. I can see a timeline distribution of this issue, basically where the user minutes who had weak signal were occurring or at what time they were occurring. If I go into distribution, I can see how this issue or this failure of service is distributed across my access points. If there's a particular AP that's maybe failing or has some interference, I can see device operating systems. If there's something related to the end user device that's causing an issue with a particular SLE, I can see specific wireless bands. Maybe it's something just in the 6 gigahertz band, which from our 90% overall impact, that's highly likely. We can also see from device types, so hardware type, and if it's a particular WLAN or SSID that's affected. I can also jump into affected items here and drill down as far as individual users. And so we can see a percentage breakdown if there's an individual user or an individual device, an individual client connected to the network that is experiencing, a greater impact of this issue than others. So for instance, this Mac here, we can see overall impact 30%. This unknown Windows device, another roughly 30%. So almost 60% of the failing coverage SLE is just coming from two devices that are probably in an area that don't have a great signal. Just for demo purposes here, I can show too, it'll actually be looking at specific applications as well, and seeing if there's a particular app or use case that is causing an issue on the network. For sites that have location services enabled and have a floor plan enabled, we can also see a distribution of the issue on a floor plan if that is related to the root cause analysis. I'll jump into successful connects here just to be able to show that we do have for certain classifiers and certain SLEs subclassifiers as well. So for instance, 18% of the time, successful connects is failing. About 1% of the time, that's DHCP. And we can look into the subclassifiers for DHCP and see, okay, it's not a NAC issue. It's not an unresponsiveness issue. It's either discover unresponsive and or incomplete attempts for DHCP. So very easy, just in 2 or 3 clicks to drill down from, hey, my users might be having issues with connecting to the network. I can see that's potentially a DHCP or an authorization issue, and I can drill down, pretty much down into the network protocol level to see what's going on and be able to do that root cause analysis. One of the kind of key, driving or development factors for Mist for, adding new features and things like that, and especially creating the workflows and the user interface for this is essentially shortening what we call the mean time to innocence, right? So when there's a problem, often users and other IT admins are very quick to blame the network. So we are trying to, for network operators, make it a lot quicker and a lot easier to be able to say, hey, the network is innocent. We've looked and, everything's functioning as it should, right? We set our parameters for how it should perform, and, it is or it isn't performing. And if there is an issue, right, we can troubleshoot fairly deeply, fairly quickly, and determine that, yes, it was, or no, it wasn't the network's fault. So that is our wireless SLEs. We have those similar SLEs for the wired network as well. We have fewer SLEs just because, again, there's less data to collect on a wired connection rather than a wireless connection, even just from the physical medium. But we do measure throughput, successful connects, switch health, and switch bandwidth for wired clients. We also measure our WAN link health and application health for our WAN SLEs. And then this application monitoring tab is actually one of the newer features that's been added to Mist. And this is, essentially our video conference monitoring tab. So we have integrations with both Microsoft Teams and Zoom. So we're able to basically measure the user experience on calls. We're able to see, the percentage of good and bad user minutes. And we're able to see specific percentages for what part of the network contributed to a potentially bad experience. Just like the other SLEs, we're able to see if there's particular clients, particular access points, or a particular location on our floor plan that is experiencing, bad video conferencing or, bad call minutes. Going over to insights here. Our insights tab is a common view among a lot of different network elements. Right now, we're looking at it at basically the organization or the site level. So these are basically just your, heads up view of network statistics, alerts, timelines, what's going on, client and device count. But you'll see a similar view other places in Mist showing these similar insights, but drilled down to a specific device, a specific user, specific AP or switch level. So for our organization here, we can see events. So we can categorize these from site, access point, switch, WAN edge, down to wired client, basically categorize all of our events here. This is a new tab that you can see just got added in our beta, which is potential anomalies and optimizations that are detected by those Marvis minis. So low power, DHCP failure, these are, potential anomalies, potential issues that, may have popped up, haven't violated an SLE, but are basically a proactive warning for the operators to, hey, come check this out. If I bump over to, for instance, switch events here, I can see everything that's going on the switch categorized by the AI as good, bad, or neutral. So, for instance, users authenticated, ports going up and down. If certain parameters are triggered, either a port going up in this case, usually it would be for a bad event that violates one of those SLEs. But we do what's called dynamic packet capture. So we're constantly taking a streaming PCAP for the whole network of, I believe it's 150 packets, basically at a time, just capturing and discarding. If there is any point in time that an SLE, like I said, has been violated or a significant network event is detected, Mist will automatically save that packet capture. You can go into here into those events when it happened, download the packet capture, and then in here, I just get a PCAP file for what was going on the network, exactly when that, problem occurred or exactly when that event happened. We can do manual or streaming PCAP as well, but this dynamic or, automatically triggering packet capture is going on all the time in Mist. So that's our Insights tab. Again, we have some other nice visibility and heads up view into what's going on for, wireless, wired, WAN devices. We can see lists of clients, lists of devices, just a nice quick heads up view for network stats as a whole on the Insights tab. So moving on to some Marvis things, I'll go over in here to Marvis actions. So this is what we kind of like to call the cup of coffee view, or the other sort of morning heads up view. Kind of up to personal preference, whether you automatically start in the monitoring tab looking at your SLEs, or if you just go straight into Marvis actions. But Marvis actions is basically the Marvis AI, again, looking at the network, trying to proactively find problems or improvements that can be made to the network, and then categorizing them as, hey, here's actions that you can take, and breaking them out by, client specific issues, layer one issues, connectivity, wired, wireless, WAN, security, and data center. So looking at layer one, for instance, for the layer one issues, right, purely just a physical layer, we can do bad cable detection. So it'll show when that bad cable popped, or when it was detected. And if we go down here, we can see which device it's on. So it's connected to this AP. I can click on that access point, go straight to it. If I go back to Marvis Actions, see bad cable, we can see some details on it. It'll show port Gigi 1019 on this corp-c-sw1 switch. And recommended action, right, is, hey, there's a bad cable connected to one or more ports. Please test and replace the cable. And then you can just set that as in progress or resolved. If you go and change this cable, set it as resolved, Mist detects the cable is bad again, it will repop this open. So, if you mark it as resolved and it's not actually resolved, Marvis will let you know about that. For for wireless, for instance, some of the actions are, offline. If it detects APs are going down, if it detects there's a loop, insufficient capacity, insufficient coverage, it'll always give you basically a Marvis recommended action. So for the issue that's detecting, what's the recommended action? You can go ahead and take that action and then set it as, in progress, resolved, or unresolved. So this little blue button up here where it says Marvis self-driven, this is, I'll call back to my slides earlier when we were on that upward swing and kind of on that stage 4.5 of a truly self-driving network. This is our very recent addition that kind of brought us into that extra half step towards self-driving. So these are toggleable, so they're totally optional as to whether or not users want Marvis to be taking action on the network. But for wireless APs and for wired and WAN devices, it'll detect non-compliant software. So if any of them are out of date for firmware or not on the same firmware version as the rest of the devices on the network, it'll trigger an auto update during a known downtime for the network. It'll automatically schedule that for when there's a low user count or when it knows there's usually a low load of users on the network. For wired and WAN devices, if there's a stuck port or intermittent WAN connectivity, it'll automatically try bouncing that port, I think up to 5 or 10 times. And if that still doesn't work and the port is stuck, it'll throw it as a wired action or a port stuck. It'll say, hey, it tried to auto resolve this. It's not resolved. Here's a recommended action. So really cool to see some of this coming already. Again, it's pretty limited in its capabilities today, just because I don't think anybody wants an AI running their network unsupervised right now. So just adding in a few of these self-driving actions to kind of start offloading some of that manual intervention from the network operator without, giving it to the keys to the castle, so to speak. So I just want to take a pause there, see if anybody has any other questions. In the meantime, with anything I've been going through so far, I think I may have been moving a little bit quickly. But any questions about our service level expectations, about Marvis actions, any of the self-driving capacity? I'll just give it a quick moment here. Alina, anything coming in?
Not yet.
Oh. All right. Well, I'll move on over to our device tabs here. And I'm actually going to go ahead and start with switching because there's a few unique things that we can do with switching that I like to call out that most people find really useful. So I'll just take this device as an example, and I like using this one as an example because it is configured as a virtual chassis. So for those of you who might be unfamiliar, virtual chassis is Juniper's stacking technology. For switch stacking, we like to call it, stacking on steroids. But from the device OS perspective, basically, when you connect to Juniper switches, they essentially just go into a mode once you enable virtual chassis, where from an OS level, they basically just believe that they're in a line card or a chassis-based system. So the first device by default is the primary. That's the, primary routing engine or controller of that stack. Secondary switch is the backup. And then each, additional or tertiary switch added onto that stack is basically just treated as a line card. So makes things, a bit easier to manage and fully supported in Mist here too. So this is the switch view. When you just click into a switch device here, you get a nice heads up view of your port view, what's connected, and it'll actually be able to tell you to a degree how that port is being used or what's connected. So we see this little 2 caret icon. That's for all of our wired clients. If I hover over this, I'll be able to see, what's going on in that port, what's connected to that port, what the MAC address of whatever wired client is connected to that. Get a little bit of information about, what's going on and how that port is being used. We can see a couple different icons over here. So for instance, the camera icon, we can detect that there's a Verkada security camera connected to that. Again, we can see some port information and port configuration from there. The little wireless Wi-Fi icon, we can see those for when missed access points are connected to a switch. The little up icon is for our uplink ports, so we know, okay, that's where our uplink is living. And then these little cross arrows are our VC Connect ports. So these are our chassis, basically our high availability connection ports. If I scroll down here, we see our switch configuration. So this is where you would basically be doing any kind of manual configuration that's specific to an individual switch. I phrase it that way because usually we recommend people take advantage of something else we have in here, which is switch templates. So this is a really powerful tool. It's exactly what it sounds like, of basically being able to templatize your switch configuration and generalize it to greatly simplify deployments. So I'll just go into one of our test templates here. But again, it's basically everything that you get on an individual switch level from a configuration perspective, but you can assign it to specific sites, specific switch groups, or based on switch role. Something that is in both the template and the individual configuration is this notion of port profiles and networks. So that is essentially how we do our port config. Is you define a network, so you define a VLAN and a subnet. You create a port profile, and I'll hit add profile here to show you some of the options. So you can give it a name, right? Enable or disable the port, tell it what mode it should be in, tell it what network it should be attached to. You can add, .1x, speed and duplex options, PoE, QoS, storm control, MTU, STP controls, tons of controls for this. But basically, you create a port profile for every essentially use case that you're going to have for a switch port on the network. And then you can assign those port profiles to basically, a group of ports. So makes the configuration process for those ports a lot simpler. And if you do have any switches that, are going to be, managed or controlled by, let's say not a, not a skilled network operator or not a network operator, period, right? I'm sure we've all run into that, especially in, education and retail, right? Where things might be getting plugged and unplugged by somebody that has no idea what they're doing. That is where dynamic port configuration can be really valuable. So this is basically being able to check things like LDP, system name, chassis ID, radius information, or even MAC prefix, and dynamically assign a configuration profile, i.e. a port profile, based on what is connected to that device. So, for instance, if I wanted, all HP laptops connected to the network to take on, my default port profile, I can say, hey, check the MAC address, check the, first and second segment of that MAC address, look for the HP, laptop prefix, and apply the default configuration profile. So that switch, wouldn't care what's plugged into it or where it's plugged in. If it detects an HP laptop, it's going to assign that to the correct VLAN and the correct subnet. So that is one thing that is, I always like to call out as pretty kind of cool and unique to the platform here. Another sort of nice, nice to have, or what I'll call a quality of life feature. I'll go ahead and discard this, jump back into my switch here, is down here at the end, which is our additional CLI commands box. So down here, we can set CLI commands for our devices at the site or template level, rule-based CLI commands, and additional that are just specific to this device. So if there's anything in the Mist GUI, that we don't have a configuration element for, or if there's, any kind of customization, modification, custom scripting or reporting that you want to be running on these devices, you can always just add it in the CLI commands box here. And again, removes anybody from needing to actually go in and telnet or SSH into a switch to make CLI changes. To that end, too, I'll point out under utilities here, we have a lot of nice testing utilities. So we have our testing tools. We can run trace routes, pings, cable tests, port bounces directly from here without actually needing to physically go and connect to the device. I can also activate a remote shell here under the Mist super user. And for instance, I can go just into the device here. I can view my configuration in XML format down here. I can go in and start making, potential changes or do any troubleshooting, again, without having to, open a session directly to the device from my local machine. We're also able to schedule firmware updates, create templates from individual devices, create snapshots, just a lot of really nice utilities for monitoring and maintaining the physical equipment in your network. So let's see, we'll move on to access points here, and I think we're actually starting to come up on time, so I do want to leave a chance for questions here. Alina, I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A box. Has anything else come in here?
I haven't seen anything. I think that you've been so thorough in your presentation that you've answered all their questions.
Okay, good. Glad to hear. Well, I'll leave it a little open here. I guess before I continue to dive deeper and keep us here for another hour, if anybody has anything in particular that they want to see or questions they have about the platform now, I'll leave a little minute of silence here for anybody to throw those up. Thank you, Aaron. Okay. Well, in that case, I'll take the last 2 or 3 minutes here I have to show you guys a little bit of the location services and our live view. So what you're seeing here is the live view of the actual Mist production office in Cupertino. The data and users have been heavily sanitized for security purposes. But this really is what our Cupertino Mist office that was around, long before they were acquired or became a Juniper HP solution was. So in here, right, we can see these little circles are virtual beacons. So we have, kitchen, location workshops, welcome out at the front entrance here. So there's a bunch of different things you can do with these virtual beacons, like I mentioned. But, for instance, for the welcome beacon, right, as people are coming in the front door, if a user is connected to Wi-Fi and has Bluetooth turned on, you can have basically once a user gets within a certain, radius on our live view map of this welcome virtual beacon, it can trigger a captive portal. It can trigger some action with the users to engage them. The example I always like to bring up that I think is really cool is the VA hospital, or one of them out in Florida, a very, very large one. They have a large memory care unit, and they use virtual beacons and are actually pulling the virtual beacon proximity data from our REST APIs. And they've integrated that with their Stanley smart locks. So every patient in the memory care ward at that hospital wears just a little Bluetooth bracelet. And if they basically get within proximity of the exits of the memory care ward, then Mist will automatically basically flag, hey, this user is near this virtual beacon. That data is pulled via API, sent to the Stanley smart lock controls, and it'll automatically lock the door before that patient is able to accidentally wander off, get themselves lost, get themselves in trouble. I just think that's a really cool implementation of this. There's obviously a ton of other use cases for it. We see it a lot in retail for both, dwell time tracking, as well as, like promotional and customer engagement type of use cases. But ton of cool stuff you can do with virtual beacons, as well as asset tracking. So, basically, if anything that you're tracking as far as an asset goes, if it has Bluetooth or Wi-Fi enabled, we can track it without, any additional hardware or any additional feature of implementation. Again, we see this a lot in education, particularly K through 12 with a lot of the Chromebooks, right? Those all have, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chips in them. Makes it really easy for us to track them, and tracking those devices is a very common use case, considering how students tend to treat them. So lots of value here in the location tab, depending on how you're using it. But obviously a ton to explore in here. Unfortunately, a lot more than I have time for today. But with that here, I think we're coming up on time. I think we've given lots of opportunities for questions here. I'll give one last call out. If anybody has a question, feel free to throw it up. If not, again, my name's Logan Danielson. Email is just logan.danielson@hpe. If you have any questions or want to learn more about the Mist platform, feel free to reach out to me, reach out to your contacts and your reps at Right Systems, and we'll be able to get you sorted. Mark, anything to add here before we drop off?
No, thanks, Logan. Certainly reach out to your Right System sales representative to assist you with any Juniper opportunities that you might have. This was very good presentation, Logan. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for your time, everybody. Thank you, Alina, for hosting us. And